Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acomb. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. And in the studio this morning, we have candidate for Chemung County Family Court Judge Bryan Maggs. Good morning.
Hey, Frank. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. We got a great response from your last interview. So let's talk about the campaign. How's it going?
It's been great. As I told you last time I was here, I've been out knocking on doors, and I probably hit hundreds of doors a week, so
Yeah.
that puts me over another 500 doors since I came back. I think I was at 4,000. I'm up to about 4,500. With a couple weeks left, I'm just marching on to the finish.
You've lucked out with the weather.
You know, just yesterday, people were saying that you picked a great day. I said, I've been walking since June.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of took May off after petitions, but the weather, maybe not so much for some people, but for me, it's been great.
Perfect. Yeah, it's too bad this wasn't the weather for petition season, right?
It was chilly, but we dealt with it.
We can't complain. And we'll ask a little bit later on about what voters have been saying to you and people that you talk to. But let's first start for people that aren't aware, because there's a lot going on right now, as you know. And we had a great event the other night with the Republicans. And there's so many candidates running, and I don't think we talked about it, and I've talked about it on the show in the past, there's not a lot of media outlets where people can find out more about you. So let's start right there. Let's talk about your background.
Yeah, I'm going to go through it quickly.
Yeah.
When I was 18, I enlisted in the Army as a combat medic. After 7 years as a medic going through law school, I became a JAG officer just before 9/11. One of my first duties as a JAG officer was to help mobilize soldiers that went overseas in response to that terrorist attack. I then spent another, 17, 18 years, whatever it was, 27 years total, almost 20 years as a JAG, doing a lot of family assistance, soldiers and families of deployed soldiers that were in need. And it was a very fulfilling and sometimes difficult and tragic type of job.
Well, and that's what I find interesting about Family Court specifically, and maybe I'll ask you why you decided to run for this position, because it's got to be an emotionally difficult job, but also an emotionally rewarding job at times.
You nailed it.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, that's the thing about Family Court. I don't shy away from the emotion. I look to help people that are in need. So that's the reason I joined the military.
Sure.
It's the reason that I gravitate toward positions where there's help that can be offered, and to whom much is given, much is expected. And I look at that for myself. Working in the family court system as a prosecutor for juvenile delinquency, I didn't look at that prosecution as I look to lock this kid up.
Right.
Family court is a services court, and you look to make a difference so that we don't have kids that turn into more problematic adults. And it's the same thing with parents. So the rewards that you can get from helping parents that are struggling, whether they're just parents that are going through a divorce, parents that have kids that are difficult, parents that need help to figure out how to parent better. It's a way that, even though there's a lot of emotion, you cut through it, you find the services that the kids need, and you make a difference.
Well, and I'm sure, not to put words in your mouth, but you want to make that difference early on, because at a time when we talk about public safety and we talk about some real issues in the community, if you can kind of nip that in the bud, as Barney Fife would have said, early on, that's got to be very rewarding, another rewarding part of family court.
Yeah, you can't help everybody. Obviously, we know that. But definitely, without a doubt, the ability for family court judges to use the system and the resources that are available in the community. And that is one thing that I think is just really important. Working for the Department of Social Services for the number of years that I did, it's an absolutely unique experience that no one else could even imagine. Between all the departments that we have, the amount of money that the county spends through the Department of Social Services to provide services to individuals, many of whom, not all of whom, but many of whom come through family court, you get to see how the programs work, what's effective in utilizing the programs, the services that are under contract with the Department of Social Services to provide assistance to the families and the kids that need them. And most importantly, moving them through the system as quickly as possible, because we have attorneys that charge money for, obviously they need to, for representing people that come into court. And the efficiencies that can be gained by having someone that understands the county system. And I've worked in the county system for 22 years.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. So your time with the county, how does that translate to family court?
Well, in multiple layers. I started out working in the court system in Chemung County. So understanding the court system from the inside, that's important. I then went to work at the Department of Social Services, being just an assistant attorney, prosecuting abuse and neglect and juvenile delinquency and PINS cases. So understanding that role. But from there, once I started getting promotions, and I supervised the family court attorneys at the Department of Social Services, and I worked closely with the CPS caseworkers, the service providers, and then being county attorney, overseeing the administration of legally of all the departments, working with the county executive and attending high-level meetings, just understanding how the reimbursements work from the state and how the court system, when it bogs down, how it really drains the resources. And then at a different level, for the last 6 years, I've been working as the attorney to the Chemung County Legislature. A completely different perspective, but gained a completely different level of insight into some of the ways that the county solves problems.
And speaking of that, solving problems, when you look at if you are ultimately at the end of the day the new family court judge, what will your focus be on as the judge, and what can be done in your mind differently and maybe better, in the future?
The focus is always the kids. So even when parents are in and you don't even see the kids, you know that they're there because they have kids that are subject to the jurisdiction of the court. So the focus is on the kids. And what can happen differently and better that people should be extremely interested in is moving people through the system as quickly as possible. Understanding that I've also been in private practice. Some attorneys running for judge at times have never been in private practice. So there are all sorts of pressures that I ran a law firm. There are pressures that are on attorneys. So holding attorneys accountable, holding parents accountable, holding the service providers, the Department of Social Services, everybody that's involved, and not allowing they're overworked. I understand that. So I understand the workload, but I also understand the need to move things quickly.
And does that seem to be a major issue? We've talked about a backlog with many different judge candidates that I've had on the program, not just specifically here. Is backlog a major issue?
It is a major issue. It's one reason why we're adding another court seat.
I want to talk about that in a second.
So adding a second full-time family court judge should help the backlog. Another issue, quite frankly, is the lack of attorneys that are available. There was a I won't call it quite a crisis, but there was a real problem with recruitment of attorneys. I think that's being alleviated. Chemung County's attorneys in mostly the defense bar, the public advocate and the public defender's office, are becoming more fully staffed. The legislature passed a pay increase to help recruit. So if anybody out there is interested in a job, there are still some vacancies. And having more attorneys available cuts down on the unavailability at the time you're trying to schedule things more quickly. So that was a problem. Where do
you think that lack of attorneys comes from? Is that just like it seems like every county we talk to, they're just people are looking to hire everywhere? Is that the case?
I've been in the business long enough. I've seen when I graduated law school, it was 2000. The market was difficult. It was difficult to get a job. I was fortunate to go work at the appellate division of the Supreme Court in Albany. It was an extremely competitive job to try to obtain. And then when I applied at law firms after I finished my court service, again, it was competitive. But it dried out. It expanded. I think currently it's because we have older attorneys that are retiring.
Sure.
And even though there are new attorneys, some of what I hear is law school graduates don't want to come to the office. They want to work remotely.
Yeah.
And family court's not.
That doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way.
That's a good point. You see those articles. it's in every profession. I guess we all got used to it during COVID, and everybody wants to stay home. I can't blame them. I like wearing pajamas too.
Right.
Right to work. So you had mentioned that there's a new position open. So there's two family court judges. If you don't mind, explain the race for people that aren't aware. When they go into the voting booth, how's that process going to go for them?
Sure. On the ballot, every position most likely that everybody in Chemung County is going to see on the ballot is a vote for one, except for the family court seat. It'll say vote for up to two. And there'll be two places where you can select two columns, if you will.
Yeah.
So there's two Republicans running and one Democrat running, you can vote for any two of those three candidates.
Okay. And that's important to note because a lot of times your mind doesn't go right to the fact that you can vote for two, even no matter how many names are on there. So I kind of want to, myself, I want to stress and reiterate to everybody watching, make sure to pay attention, not just in Chemung, but in Steuben, pay attention to the ballot. Don't go in blind, and make sure that you note that it says vote two, or otherwise you are throwing away a vote. So we talked about the fact that you been knocking on a lot of doors. You spent a lot of time on that.
I did.
Are you going to miss it?
I think I will.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always been a people person.
Sure.
I've coached youth sports every sports season that exists for the last 20 years, except for this one. Now that my kids are all in college, I miss that a little bit. But knocking on doors, meeting people. Yeah. I'm not worried about not meeting people. There'll be plenty of people coming into court if I were lucky enough to get the job. And knocking on doors it's really a way that you can put your pulse on, your finger on the pulse of the community, and hear what people are thinking and what their concerns are.
Well, and I want to ask about those concerns, but I know I talk about this with, I think, everybody. Isn't it interesting because something may come up to you that you weren't even aware of, and it'll be so eye-opening. And I think that's why the petition process is really, at the end of the day, an amazing process, and the campaigning and the old knocking on doors way of campaigning, because you will learn about things that you may not even know existed in Chemung County.
It's true.
Yeah.
You meet people, you hear about what they're concerned about, and sometimes you're surprised by what people tell you.
Yeah. I know a long time ago, I ran for town council back when I was just getting out of college, and I had a nice long conversation with a wonderful lady about her newspaper subscription coming in late every morning. And I explained there's not much I could do, but I would be more than happy to make a call. But anyway, that's what I'm talking about. But in all seriousness, when people are talking to you, what are the biggest concerns that they're seeing when you talk family court?
Well, when I talk family court, it remains homelessness.
Yeah.
The concern about mental health, homelessness, and to a slightly lesser extent, the lack of respect and accountability that children have or apparently have nowadays. I try to tell people that, in my experience, there are great kids and there are not great kids.
Yeah. Just like grown-ups.
Just like right. So I don't know that people are necessarily different. Times are different, but people are definitely concerned about the direction that kids are going. People feel like kids don't work hard, that they don't respect authority, and we all see it. Yeah. So it's not a surprise.
And I think even that's why it's interesting with the media sometimes, downplaying the public safety and homelessness and like that, because it's something just like inflation that you can see every single day, unfortunately.
You can, and I think a lot of the issue is kids need a purpose. So kids when they don't have something to do, whether it's sports, music, reading, clubs, community service, church, something to keep them involved. They find something to do, and usually what kids find to do isn't necessarily the best thing to do. So one of the things that the family court system can do is use the services that are available to give kids a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, and the judge is a huge part in that.
And we received the question, I'm not going to ask because I know that you can't really necessarily answer it, but I do think it's interesting, and this has come up to me every time I interview a judicial candidate. Isn't it interesting how for this one time of your life you have to be political, and it has to be Republican or Democrat, but if you do become the family court judge, you cannot talk politics? Yeah,
people, just yesterday, someone said, they'll ask me, because I don't, when I go to their doors, I don't tell them, that I'm a Republican, not because I'm, ashamed of being a Republican by any means, but I don't see a judicial race as a political race. But I tell them you have to run on a political line. That's just the way the system is.
You have no choice.
I'll identify as a Republican because that's what I am. It's what I've been my whole life, and there are strong reasons for that. So it is odd that you can't be political, but you have to be political during this period of time.
And almost like hyper-political for this short period of time. Right. So it's very odd. But so if this person, I don't want them to think I'm ignoring them. It's a great question, but not one that can be answered. So has there been any surprises during the campaign?
Not to me. Not to me. All the focus is on the big races, nationally, and what's going to happen in particular in places like Pennsylvania. So everybody is paying attention to that.
Sure.
My biggest surprise personally is how much support I have.
Oh, that's
You
great.
know, how many people, I'll knock on their doors and they'll say, I've seen your signs all around. I didn't really know you. I said, well, that's why I'm here. I'm here to talk to you. I'm here to give you some information, here to answer any questions that you have about me, any questions you have about the position. And they leave with a smile and a handshake, and we go on our way. So that's been the surprise for me, has been the support and the reception.
And I know normally when someone's being interviewed, they always say humbled by, but have you been humbled by the endorsements that you've received? Because you've received great endorsements.
I am. The number of people that came forward and asked, and when I've asked them that have endorsed me, between county legislators, businessmen,
Right.
Sheriff Schramm, former county executive Tom Santulli, lots and lots of people, and it is humbling. And there are many more that aren't on my published list.
Sure. Just before we go, a couple last questions here. Where can people find out more about your campaign? And we thank you right here on the program for being on twice, because that's been a big goal of ours to get the word out, and so people know when they go in the booth why they're voting. But if they have more questions, where can they find out instead of waiting for you to knock on their door?
Sure. The best place to find out more about me is my Facebook page.
Okay.
That's the best place. Or you stop down to Chemung County Republican headquarters. I tend to go there at least twice a week, just stop in and meet people that are coming in.
Oh, that's great.
Talk to them there as they're picking up lawn signs for various candidates. It's been a great way to meet people there. Call my law office, make an appointment. You can meet with me anytime.
Sure.
I'm very accessible. A lot of people contact me through Facebook Messenger and ask me questions or things. If I can't answer them because of the nature of the question, I politely decline. But that's the best way.
And now we need, and this is not a gotcha question, I just need an update from the last time you were on. At the end of the day, we're just 2 weeks out. How many pocket constitutions will you have given away, do you think?
Well, so I just opened my last box of 200.
Good timing.
Which puts me at 2,300 that I've given away.
Wow.
And with 200 to go, I will run out in the next 2 weeks with all the doors that I'm going to be knocking on. So I will have handed out 2,500 constitutions. Yesterday there was a family, really nice family over on the east side of Elmira. It was kind of a rough section of town, but it's really heartwarming when you see these kinds of things. There's a family, there was 4 kids and mom and dad out in the driveway just playing in a tough section of town. And I walk up, introduce myself, happen to be a minority family, and I said, "Who wants the Constitution?" And all the kids are raising their hand, give it to me. And they were fighting over it. It was really nice to see. It was great.
I wish there were more grown-ups that would do that, fight over the Constitution. So in closing, what do you say to voters before they head to the booth, either early voting on starting on the 26th or on the 5th?
Yeah, first, get out to vote. Remember, it's an election where you can vote for 2 family court judge candidates in Chemung County. Experience is the key in a race like this, and the amount of experience that I have, both the depth of the experience and the breadth of the experience between my time in the military doing family law. I've worked for the Department of Social Services. I worked as a prosecutor and a supervisor of family court attorneys for 17 years. I've worked for the executive branch, the judicial branch, the legislative branch. I venture to say there's no judicial candidate around that has had the depth and breadth of experience that I do.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you. This is the second time, and I appreciate that. And I want to wish you best of luck.
Thanks, Frank.
All right, we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us.